Hello and welcome to Cornish Walking Trails. Today we're here in Mousehole.
Paradise private beach.
So what are we going to do in Mousehole today? We've got one or two old books with us. We'll tell you some stories. We might help you with some information, history about Mousehole. Most of all, we're going to have a wander around the little streets, tell you about Dolly Pentreath and go up to Paul. Mousehole is on the south coast of Cornwall, near Penzance.
So if you're approaching Mousehole from the Penzance area, there's a big car park here on the left hand side just before the village. Lots of spaces today. It's June 2022 and if you want to park your car for up to 6 hours it's £5.50. If you're lucky you might be able to park your car at the side of the road.
When we arrived this morning, our plan was to walk from Mousehole down the coast towards Lamorna Cove and come back across fields. But it's way too warm, so we're going to explore Mousehole and then go up to Paul and try and make a circular route down one of these footpaths and come back along the road.
A house called Nigel. Hello Nigel.
Like a lot of the Cornish villages, Mousehole is very much a tourist destination now. The old Cornish cottages, very appealing. So they've been turned over to holiday homes now. Only a little bus can get through Mousehole, you don't get the double deckers.
Chaos in Mousehole, Sarah.
So the bus actually has to turn around in Mousehole, doesn't it? And go back again to Penzance.
It's quite an art.
Yes.
It's like a ballet.
Only a little bus can service Mousehole. Here we go.
Yeah.
Wait, this one's coming out now.
Buses of Cornwall with Sarah and Andrew.
We're going to stick around Mousehole and then we're going to head up to Paul and tell the story of Dolly Pentreath, the last person supposedly to speak Cornish. Today the Cornish language is rarely heard, but it's still very visible, with many of our towns and villages having Cornish names derived from Cornish, like Mousehole was originally called Porthenith.
I can speak Cornish, Sarah.
Yeah, what do you want?
Do you want to hear some Cornish?
Yeah.
Ah, innit?
Yeah.
That means it's rather warm today.
When I was a child, the property over there with a big conservatory used to be a restaurant called the Lobster Pot, and my best friend's sister used to work in there as a waitress. Holiday homes now. The fate of lots of buildings here. It does make you wonder how some of these businesses actually don't give in to that temptation to sell out and become a holiday home. If I had my sketchbook with me, I think I could film an entire book. You know, it's all about the lines, telegraph lines crossing over each other, coming down like a spider's web from the pole. It's about seagulls sitting on chimneys that aren't necessarily red anymore. It's these little streets where all of the buildings are unique, have a different character to one another. Some are painted and rendered, some are picked out granite, others are hung slate, look. It's an extraordinary place to wander around there.
What I love about Mousehole is that every single cottage is slightly different. They've got quirky little angles. The other thing I noticed is that the chimneys are always really tall, and a lot of them are bricked chimneys. I've also lost Sarah. I don't know where she is. Gonna see if I can find her. Let's go ahead and look at these lovely cottages as well. Where is she? Is she up here?
I am like the Mousehole cat, secretive and elusive.
Does that mean you sleep all day? You're furry and you like milk?
Yeah,
Okay.
purr a lot. Anybody who's been to Mousehole will probably know the story of the Mousehole cat. That house is depicted. Is it Antonia Barber who created the story?
You're asking the wrong person, but I know it's a really long tale.
The Mousehole cat, based on the legend of Tom Bourcock.
Mouser, isn't he? The cat?
Yes.
Yes.
So the storms were raging for days and days, and the village couldn't go out and get any fish. The village at that time was sustained by fish. Tom Bourcock, who had no family as such, did he, other than his cat, he decided that he would weather the storm and go and get some fish. And the legend has it he brought back 7 different types of fish.
What I understand of it is he took the cat with him.
Oh,
Is that right? And the
really?
cat's purring quelled the storm, isn't that right?
No, I think that's the story that Antonia Barber has created.
Oh, okay. Right.
And has overtaken the original legend.
That's probably where I'm going wrong.
Yeah.
But
so
they do celebrate Tom Bourcock and his endeavours to go out and catch fish, which he did, and he brought back and he fed the village.
Yes,
And
yeah.
kept the villagers alive. And they celebrate that just before Christmas.
So as a child,
Yeah.
my mum always used to tell me Mousehole got its name because of the small gap between the harbour walls.
Right, okay. Well, I've got some other theories on this.
Oh, really?
Well, apparently there is a cave which smugglers used,
Oh,
and the
that's a
cave
surprise.
is shaped like a mouse hole,
oh, okay.
so it could be that.
It used to be called...
Porthennis.
So Porth means cove or beach, and Ennis means headland or island.
Yeah, no, there is an island just
Offshore.
and it's called St Clement's Island, I think. So it's summertime, obviously, on the South Quay harbour wall here. There's some huge timbers. Look at the size of these. In the winter time, I think these are what go across the entrance to the harbour to keep the worst of the storms out. And I've got a book at home. I'm pretty sure it shows a chap cycling across the top of one of them, entertaining a crowd in the early 1900s.
Because we knew we'd be coming to Mousehole today, we dug up our Cornish Harbours book by Roland Roddice. He wrote this in 1951 when he toured around a lot of Cornish harbours, and then he wrote his experiences down.
Bit in this book, I'm going to have to whisper just in case the fishermen are still here.
Oh, okay.
Because they will curse me. They won't be
Don't
impressed.
take a pasty out to sea.
Shh. That's what I was about to say. It says in here, it says, the people here used to be very superstitious. He went on, no mention of rabbits, and no cold iron must be touched on board, or bad luck would come. But there's not the superstition now, but there used to be. But you are quite right, you never take a pasty to sea, it's very bad luck, apparently. Fishermen are having a rattle, Barney, aren't they?
They are, aren't they?
Apparently it's because some bloke up there was talking about rabbits and pasties and stuff like that. They're still falling out.
Yeah. I think it's Grandad and Grandson.
Right.
They look massive.
They look really old.
I do like the last bit in here. So, I've lost track of who he's talking to, but one of the old fishermen said there's no money in fishing today, and the youngsters aren't coming into the trade. He said nobody seems to care what will happen to the fishing here, he said sadly. It seems as if looking after visitors will soon be the biggest job, but it's not more important than fishing yet. And Roland Roddice adds, I hope it never will be. Well, unfortunately I think in the last 70 years that actually has happened here, don't you?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most popular places to come and stay in a little holiday cottage, isn't it?
Yeah, the
You can
biggest
see why,
industry.
it's gorgeous, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You can see the appeal of it.
Beautiful. Yes. And you've still got the artists coming here, you've still got people coming out to do paddle boarding and just enjoying being here.
What I would like to add though is there are still a few fishermen here.
Yes.
We've seen one or two go out this morning, haven't we?
Absolutely, arguing, squabbling.
They were. Sarah, I'm getting really worried.
Why?
Well, we haven't started our walk yet.
I know.
Right, and I've ate half my lunch already.
I know.
I know I only have 2 saffron buns left, and I started with 4,
I know.
but I have got a full belly at the moment.
I have that weird experience down here that my Cornish accent wants to pounce out like the cat. And I want to be local because I know we're local, but we're not local to the area, so we're still regarded as foreigners. So where do we fit? Because we aren't tourists and we aren't local. I know. Bizarre feeling.
Well, we are local, we're just not local
No, I know.
to Mousehole.
But in the old sense, if you weren't from the village, you weren't local.
What, you foreign?
You're a foreigner.
Foreigner.
Yeah. Now returning to Roland Roddice and his experience. He came to Mousehole and he said of Mousehole, here I found that the people were proud of their village, as indeed they have every reason to be, and the most knowledgeable about its history. So he encountered 1 or 2 people, one of whom was called William Henry Pole Green, and he describes him as a burly figure in a blue sailor's sweater leaning with his back to the railings. He had a lot of information about Mousehole, and he's told Roland Roddice that the South Pier was built in the reign of King John, and that was later affirmed as 1290, so that's this pier here that we're actually sat on. So this quay, a lot more rugged. The pieces of granite are huge. When you're on the beach you can see it looks like they've just taken them off the moorland and hoped that they would sit on top of each other. The other quays all cut granite, must have cost a fortune, much later date. So if this dates back from 1290, that seems pretty amazing to me. We've also been down here in the winter in a storm, and the southwesterlies hit this breakwater and they smash up over, and then they come into the harbour. The wave splatters as it breaks into the harbour all over this wall. So it's stood up some punishment over the years.
It's a nice little book. Mousehole, written in 1970.
Aww.
It says in here, it talks about the burning of Mousehole, Paul, Newlyn and Penzance from time immemorial, a prediction had prevailed in the old Cornish language that a period would arrive when some strangers would land on a rock of Merlin and would burn Mousehole, Paul, Penzance and Newlyn. It is worthy of remark that the Spaniards actually landed on a rock called Merlin. Point Spaniard, Merlin Rock.
And did they burn Mousehole?
They certainly did. So we're going to find the only house in the village that survived.
Yes, we know where that is, don't we? In 1595, the Spaniards attacked the town and burnt all the houses except one, the old Kegwin Arms, which still stands.
It's a wonderful property behind me, Sarah. It's called Kegwin. It's actually named after the chap that lived here. It says the Kegwin, home of Squire Jenkin Kegwin, and the adjoining standard were the only houses left standing after the Spaniards had burnt the town. It is said that Squire Kegwin killed 6 Spaniards before he was killed. He died with his sword in his hand.
Part of the reason that Squire Jenkin defended this house, he was aware that his grandson had alerted Drake to the Spanish Armada coming up the Channel 7 years prior to when they came back. It's generally felt that in 1595, when they came back and landed here, it was in retaliation because they set up the alert. They helped the English defeat the Spanish Armada. So it kind of makes you wonder, were all the houses at that time like timber buildings, half timber buildings? Now a lot of them have been rebuilt in stone.
Sorry. That's right.
Literally opposite, diagonally opposite, is the plaque to Dolly Pentreath. This is where Dolly Pentreath is meant to have lived. She's meant to be the last Cornish speaker in England. We've been several places now. We know that there's some doubt as to who actually was the last person, but she gets most of the accolades.
There's not a great deal here though, is it? It's a very small little property. I like the stained glass in the window.
Yeah.
So it says, here lived Dolly Pentreath, one of the last speakers of the Cornish language as her native tongue, died December 1777.
I actually think that's what sets her apart from the one that we saw at Sennen. No, it's Zena.
Mm-hmm.
Zena. And that she actually had it as a native tongue rather than just speaking it. I think they're in competition with each other. Beautiful display. Wow. So we're coming out of Mousehole on the hill. It's kind of a gentle pull all the way to Paul. Yes, it worked. Paul Church. I like this. You've got kind of a potted history of Cornwall on the left. Things like Eden Project opens, Goonhilly Earth Station, stuff like that. And then on the right, you've got the more local stuff. So in 490, Paul Church was founded. The next significant thing is in 1595 when the Spanish attacked. Then we have Dolly in 1777. Never is a church more welcome than on a hot day. Oh, it's so cool in here. Oh, very good.
I like it in the churches. They give you a bit of a guide.
Yeah, because you are guessing sometimes, aren't you?
So it's saying on here, there's been a church on this site for at least the past 1500 years.
Which ties in with that notice board outside.
Walls and pillars thought to date from the 13th century.
Okay, gosh.
The arches were reconstructed after the church was burnt down by Spanish invaders in 1595.
They are leaning.
They are, aren't they? And the tower was probably survived the Spanish invasion, it says.
Wow.
And the ceiling structure dates from 1770.
Oh, really? Oh, it's very plain, isn't it?
Lock on it and everything.
No. Really? Gosh, I've never seen that before.
Look Victorian, don't they?
Oh. There we go, I've locked him in now.
Can't do any damage.
So Andrew's just read out that there is a Spanish sword left behind from when they attacked. Yes, look. I think there's two of them. Maybe one's Spanish, one's English. Oh, so it does say one of the swords is inscribed. Nicholas Godolphin. So you reckon that's his sword? One of those is his sword. So does that mean the other one is the Spanish sword? How hard is it to find a sword in a church? Now that's a drum. You've got sidetracked again, haven't you?
I have.
One of the swords is Spanish, dated about 1580, thought to have been left behind after the burning of the church.
Yeah, so it was that then.
Oh, okay.
We just don't know which one.
No, because we're too far away from them.
Yeah.
Because we're down here and they're like up there.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't come to Mousehole and Paul without mentioning the loss of the men on the Solomon Brown. Dolly Pentreath, 1692 to 1777. The most famous woman of the parish must be Dolly Pentreath. She was a fishwife from Mousehole who sold fish after trudging into Penzance with a wicker basket on her back, smoked her pipe and drank a flagon of beer with the best. She spoke the old Cornish, and it is claimed she was the last monoglot speaker of the Cornish language. As well as a voice that would carry as far as Newlyn, she had the heart of a lion, and it was said that when a press gang landed in search of men for the navy, Dolly took up a hatchet and fought them back to their boats, and so cursed them in old Cornish that the crew never ventured back. As one of the best-known local characters, she was painted by John Opie, and her legacy was guaranteed when an interest in reviving ancient minority languages became popular among Victorians. This is why it takes us so long to put these videos together, because I think we're off going to do the next bit. No, he's been distracted by something else. We're shutting the book. We're shutting the book. Lovely book. I'm not winning here, am I? Andrew, what are you doing?
I'm seeing if there's a photograph taken after the church was burnt down.
In 1595?
Yeah. It says here, Dolly Pentreath, a renowned local celebrity. It is said that the funeral of Dolly, who died in 1777, aged 102, was interrupted for a whisky break. An old Cornish newspaper describes her funeral as thus.
Wonderful. Andrew, what makes me laugh? You read that about Dolly Pentreath cussing in Cornish.
Does she like to do that?
And then we had those fishermen this morning.
They were cussing. They were proper cussing, they were.
Must be descendants, mustn't they?
So if you want to find Dolly's grave, it's actually right on the boundary wall of the church. So you've got the gates to the church here, and actually in the boundary wall you will find a memorial to Dolly. Now they think she's buried just inside the church wall there.
But she didn't have a proper
headstone. There was
headstone.
no headstone when she was buried, first of all. So Louis Bonaparte, I think, was a nephew or a cousin of Napoleon.
Nephew of Napoleon.
He thought this wasn't right, and he wanted a proper memorial stone put in to commemorate her.
So this is the memorial that Louis Lucien Bonaparte and the vicar of the time put up to commemorate Dolly Pentreath. So here lieth interred Dorothy Pentreath, who died in 1777, said to have been the last person who conversed in the ancient Cornish, the peculiar language of this county from the earliest records till it expired in the 18th century in this parish of St. Paul. So in this context, peculiar doesn't mean odd. At the time, peculiar would have meant unique. So it's not being rude, it's actually just saying that the Cornish language was unique.
So if I'm right about this, it says the stone is erected by the Prince Louis Lucien Bonaparte, and this was put in 1860, so this is getting on for nearly 100 years after Dorothy died.
Yes.
Dolly. And I think the Prince had some sort of a fascination with the fact that languages had died out.
Yes, he was kind of going on a bit of a tour,
and he was
wasn't
researching it, and he was touring Europe, I think, about this. But I think he stayed in the King's Arms.
I thought we read somewhere that there was a visitor's book and he'd signed it.
That's right, I'm sure that's an excuse to go in a pub.
Oh yeah.
Ready?
No, I can't stand it. It's gone to my head.
Have another one.
No. So I believe over that bit of drink there, I have agreed to try a footpath that we haven't tried before.
Yes.
Oh crumbs.
Yeah, it could be very overgrown, but
Yes.
we'll give it a go.
Oh crumbs. Okay. Not too bad though. Is that the beer goggles? Looking at that.
That's alright, we'll be alright with that. Yeah, come on, be alright.
I think this sign would be confusing, even without alpha cider. Crikey, where on earth am I going? So you want to go down this footpath that's got cow parsley up here, stinging nettles, all the rest of it, and it's miles of it.
You're right.
I don't want to do it. I really don't want to do it. Gosh, she's forging onwards. Seriously?
I'd say that is overgrown.
Very disappointing that you can't make a nice little circular walk. Wonderful story of Dolly Pentreath and the Cornish language and all that sort of thing. But it's just not worth fighting through stinging nettles and brambles and go past the up to your ears. So we're going to go back down the road.
I'm sorry, darling, you were correct.
Oh my goodness me. Hang on a minute, so you've had a pasty.
Yeah.
You've already had 2 saffron buns. That's the 3rd saffron bun. Oh, if I could cuss in Cornish for being gluten-free, I flaming well would.
Come on, Dolly.
Now I'll chin up. My legs are covered in stinging nettle stings. Not a successful CWT adventure. We will head back into Paul and just do the road route down. Well, the good news is Mousehole and Paul are not that far apart, and on the way back to Mousehole it's all downhill. There you go.
And I still get that for getting you lost. Brilliant.
Good point.
Right, put the camera down because I think these pesky seagulls might want this.
So we've visited Mousehole today. We've given you quite a bit of the history of Mousehole, how it got its name. And then we followed up with Dolly Pentreath.
Yeah, it's the village in Cornwall that was burnt to the ground by the Spanish.
Yeah, except one house.
One house, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went up and had a look at Dolly's grave up at Paul Church there.
Yeah, very interesting. I thought Paul Church was very peaceful.
It's a beautiful spot, yeah.
And I did enjoy a pint afterwards.
And an ice cream, nice.
And if you've enjoyed our potter around Mousehole, perhaps you'd like to join us on Instagram and Facebook, where we post pictures, photographs of where we've been.
We do. And if you're feeling really up to it, you can join us on Patreon and YouTube membership as well. Help support the channel.
Yes, be great.
Cheers now.